Welcome to the Major Margins Podcast, a podcast about how to increase your profits in a major way. Each week, we'll cover all things about managing your funds, increasing your profits, and to create healthy cash flow in your business and life. We'll have your favorite entrepreneurs talk about how they transform their money and business for the better. And I'm your host, Ayana Vaughn. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Major Margins Podcast. So great to have you. So today's going to be a little bit different. I don't have like a actual format. Today I'm going to be doing a Come on a Financial Friday with me. So if you were part of the live that me and one of my clients, Maya Elias, did last week, I say last week because, well, actually, no, it was earlier this week because today is Friday the 15th and we had our live on Monday the 11th. And it was a really good one. And we talked about how to master your cash flow in both your business and personal life. So I just wanted to come on here and just give like an overview of how I do my Financial Fridays. Every Friday morning, I try to go in and do my numbers. And I'm going to actually do them with you while I'm here so that you get a feel of what I actually do, how long it takes me typically, and also like what you can do to kind of get ready to master your cash flow in real time, not just talking about it, but actually doing it. And so that you can see how that works. The first thing that I do every morning is I try to look at all of my bank accounts. And that goes for me looking at my Capital One 360 account for my personal account. I just make sure everything looks good. I look at my account inside of my credit union, make sure that looks good. And I look at my business account. Now I will get into more details about each account once I start talking about what I do when I actually start doing the actual manual work or the Financial Friday. I look at my accounts. Then I look at my revenue tracker and I put in the revenue that I made the previous day so that I can see how close I am to my income goal and think about what I need to do to increase my funds. And then I do my business bookkeeping. So that's the third task that I do on Friday mornings. And my business bookkeeping is done through an accounting platform called Xero. That's Xero. I think it's a really great user-friendly platform that is robust enough for individuals who grow their businesses substantially. And then I do my personal bookkeeping. And then finally, I do my cash allocation. So I'll transfer money to my specific accounts. Again, I will talk more about that once we get to that section. But I just wanted to tell you an overview of what I do. I just looked at my accounts. I just did my revenue tracker, but I'm about to go ahead and go into my accounting system and do my bookkeeping. So I will be right back. Okay, so I just put a stopwatch on so I can tell you guys how long it takes me to do my bookkeeping. Now I'm on the dashboard of my Xero account and I'm looking at it. And the first thing that I do is I reconcile the Stripe and my PayPal accounts because those are the payment processing. And then I'm categorizing the revenue streams that's coming in. And then I go into my income account. So I have different accounts, so I'm going to go over them. I have an income account, and that's where all of my Stripe payments and my PayPal payments get transferred in, as well as any other client payments. It goes straight to that checking account. Then I have an operating account. That's a checking account where all of my business expenses come out of. This is not in a specific order. I should have made it a better order, but I'm just going down the line of what's in my Xero account. Then I have a contractor account, AKA might be like a payroll account if I have employees, but this is where the cash goes into and where all of my team members get paid out of. So it's also a checking account and I link it up to my Bill.com account. So Bill.com is where I pay my team members. We have that account. I also have a tax account, and that is with an outside bank, and I transfer money every month to that account. Then I have a credit card, kind of like a small business credit card that I use for purchases, and then I just kind of try to pay it off in full every month. Then finally, I have a profit account that is also with an outside bank. It's a kind of like a quote high yield savings account. I put money in that every month as well. but that isn't linked in here. I do it like a kind of like an asset transfer. So instead of it being an expense, it's marked as an asset just because it's like literally nothing really happens in that account and I don't want to like really see it. So that is all my accounts that I have in my Xero platform. I'm going to go ahead and do the actual reconciliation. Now, of course, I put the timer on as I was speaking because it took me a whole 2.5, almost 3 minutes to explain this. So I will redo the timer once I start actually reconciling transactions and look. You know what? I'll come back after I reconcile the transactions and then I'll go into like the next phase of what I do as an overview when I look at my numbers. And I'll be right back. Okay, so that was 12 minutes of me reconciling transactions. The reason why it takes me that long is because I create bank rules. So once I upload my transactions, I'm able to quickly go through them and knock them out. Now, my bookkeeping process would be even quicker if my bank feed was set up. I'm really meticulous on how I like certain things, but when I set up my bank feed with Xero with Capital One Spark, that's what I use for business. It unfortunately does not have the detail that I need because I have different bank accounts. So I download my transactions via an OFX account or not account, an OFX file format, and then I upload it. And then everything is just to my liking so that I can see the exact detail for the transfer between my income account to my other respective accounts. And I can make the rules much more quicker. During this time, it's funny because even though I look at it every single week, there's always something that pops up. So for instance, I have a personal app that I use is coming up to my business account. So I need to switch out the card that I use. I think what happened was I set it up through PayPal, but instead of using like my personal card or like a personal PayPal, I just did it through one of my business accounts. I'm like, okay, let me just cancel this out. Another thing was a subscription to Microsoft. So I exceeded the amount of time you could use it for your student account. So I finally buckled down and got a business Microsoft account. And I realized I've been paying it for a few months, but I haven't used it, which is silly of me. So I need to go ahead and just like actually use it for my computer. I need to like re-download the Microsoft software after I finish everything so that I'm ensuring that I'm using it and getting, I'm actually paying for something that I'm using. If not, I'll just have to just cancel it. Finally, I came across a subscription that I used. It was like a trial that I was using for something that I call a direct cost subscription. So with direct cost subscriptions, I'm paying for the subscription to deliver the service. In this case, I was testing out different cash flow forecasting services to see which one was the best for me. And I tested out this one software and I forgot to cancel the subscription. So I got charged for it. So I will have to go ahead and cancel. And it doesn't hurt to see if I can get a refund since I haven't used it. That's what I need to do today. Now, when I download my transactions and upload them into Xero to avoid the double charges or the duplicate transactions that are uploaded, I download from the previous Friday to Thursday because those transactions are done. And then after I'm done with everything, I will go ahead and do the transfers. But I already know, since I'm looking at my bank account every day, I already know, what is in my bank account. So that's pretty much how I'm doing it. And I'll tell you again, like what that means when I'm done. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the actual reconciliation. It took me about a little less than 12 minutes to do. The next thing that I do is look at like what's outstanding in my invoices. And, if I need to contact any clients, then I'll do that, as well as look up any upcoming bills. So this week in my Xero account, I create all of my recurring invoices as of the first of the month and then the due date when I expect them to be paid so that I can see all future payments and like what's coming up this week, what's coming up next week, and so forth. And I do the same for all of my bills. So I create recurring bills in my Xero account so I can do the same thing just so that I don't have to guess about like what's next. I can just quickly glance at it as I'm doing my bookkeeping and I'm knowing what's coming up next. So next week, I have like a subscription payment coming up for one of my direct costs. So subscriptions, sorry. But unfortunately, the software has been acting up. So I'm going to have to contact them and say, okay, we're paying for this software, but it's not, delivering up to par. So I'm going to put a note to that. Okay, next week towards the end of the month, I have to run my payroll. So I run my payroll once a month. I'm not going to get into much detail with that right now because that's a whole nother podcast about how I pay myself via payroll versus owner's draw and things like that. So I'll save that one. Just to kind of keep it short, I just pay the payroll taxes every month. And then I do my transfers as needed to satisfy. But yes, that is it for the reconciliation. After I do that, I'll look at my income statement, just do a quick glance. I have a template set up in my Xero account where I go in and then I'll look at like today's date. So it's like as of, November 15th, and I do it versus last month, and I just see how I'm doing with my revenue and expenses, my net income and all that good stuff. So, everything's looking good. Like I said, I have some things to follow up on for invoicing. I have to update some stuff. And I also have to do the things that I need to do with my expenses, like consolidate them, like contact things I'm not using, change over some stuff. So yes, that is it for the business bookkeeping as far as like me having that dialogue. So I'm not sure how long this podcast is right now, but I'm thinking I may go ahead and just split this into another podcast for personal as a part 2, because I have more things to do. And I'm sure I have a lot of things that's going to come up with my personal bookkeeping as well as my personal tasks. Then finally, how I allocate my funds. So I'm going to stop right here. And then in part 2, we'll talk about pretty much what I do with my personal finances and how I allocate my funds every week. All right. Thank you so much. Bye. So I know I said I was going to go ahead and come back on another one when it comes to allocating my finances, but I want to tell you guys exactly what I did with the admin section of my Financial Friday. So after I looked at my financials to date, which is like my P&L to date, and I looked at it against my goals and budget, I went ahead and did some emails for accounts receivable. So that is like emailing about outstanding invoices that may have been late. I then went ahead and moved over the subscription that was supposed to be billed on my personal account. So I did that. And I went ahead and canceled the subscription for the direct call subscription, which is how I deliver services to clients through a specific subscription. I canceled it. I was in a trial and I forgot to cancel it before the trial ended. And then I decreased my subscription amount for another software that relates to client services. So I decreased that amount right before my billing came through. I then went to my allocation spreadsheet. So I have a spreadsheet where I divvy up my funds to my different accounts. So in my case, I have my income account. So like I said previously, all of my funds from PayPal, Stripe, or income comes into my income account. I then have an account called contractors. So 20% of the cash that is in my income goes straight to my contractor account because they directly relate to me getting income. Now, this may change next year because I'm doing some team changes at the beginning of the year. I will talk about that in another episode for sure. So then after I have my contractors, there's something called real revenue, and real revenue is after your contractors. So out of my real revenue, which is still in my income account, I then pay myself 50% in my owner's pay. So there is something called an owner's comp in the usual profit first model. But instead of having an owner's comp account, I just have like an income account in my personal account. So that acts as my owner's comp. So I have a separate income account in my personal funds. So once I do my personal bookkeeping in that episode, I will talk to you about how I divvy up that account. But after that, I have my profit account. So I transfer 5% of what was in my income account to my profit account. So that is an external savings account, an external high yield savings account where I transfer funds to that. It's like a Morgan Sachs account. So I do that. And then I transfer 15% of the income to my outside checking account, which is my tax account. And then finally, I transfer the remaining 30% to my operating account. And then what I was doing today is I said previously that I have my bills already set inside of Xero, so I know what's coming up. There were 2 things that I needed to create bills for so that I know exactly what's coming up in these coming weeks, just to make sure everything is good. This is a larger expense month for me, so I'm just kind of like looking at that. And then December is going to decrease substantially as far as expenses. So I'm just like kind of making sure that I'm good on that end. We still have a couple of more weeks of this for me. I think that is all inclusive of like what I do. I think after this, you'll get a feel of how someone who manages money for clients manages their own money for themselves. So I'm trying to treat myself as I do with clients, where have given myself grace, making sure I'm looking over things, making sure I'm asking myself those questions that I ask my clients, like, am I using this? Can this be decreased, or can this be canceled? Or is there something else that is better for me out there as far as like software or services or things of that nature? I'm using a outside service and I'm not happy with their services. So I've been back and forth with them as well. And because I've been obsessed with like looking at my bank account and making sure everything is good, I'm like, okay, I'm seeing things that aren't adding up. So yes, this is finally the for real version of the end of this podcast. I hope this was helpful. Again, we went over what I do with my Financial Friday. And also, I would love, love, love for you to subscribe and rate this podcast. I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope that it's been tangible for you. And after I recorded some of the episodes, I realized that they're pretty short, which is good for me. And I think good for you guys, because I am talking about concepts of money. And I hope for it to not be so just overwhelming, listening to it and just like getting some action items and getting that all together. So please let me know if you love these shorter episodes. And yes, I look forward to giving you more. All right, bye. For real this time. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us on this week of the Major Margins Podcast. Check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Lovely Financials and at lovelyfinancials.com to learn more about mastering your cash flow. I'd really appreciate if you rate and subscribe to catch every new episode. See you next Tuesday.